Big tech is in bed with big con. The people you thought, the people I thought were fighting for you, a lot of it has been a big con. Now, I'm specifically avoiding naming names or going after individuals in this video.
So popular conservative commentator and comedian Steven Crowder came out on his YouTube channel claiming to push back against right-wing gatekeepers.
Because I genuinely hope that those I'm addressing, and you know who you are, have a change of heart. It's never too late to do the right thing. Guys, this is a genuine plea. We can all do better. We can all do better. It doesn't have to be this way. And please, don't make me have to provide receipts.
Who are not only controlling the movement, but giving out really messed up contracts. Is this expose the real deal?
I now know what you are signing out there. I have the luxury of not having to.
Do you buy it? We're gonna react to about a dozen clips and talk about it today. It's gonna be a great show. Reaction video coming. We're live now.
It's the Dream Rare Podcast. Welcome to the show. The way to get the news at the desk or on the road. Let's go. God is great and success in our control. The world is crazy, but we get better from obstacles. Yeah.
Hey, what's going on, folks? So I wanted to do a double session today because I thought it was interesting. Steven Crowder claimed to expose right-wing gatekeepers and basically people who are controlling some of your favorite influencers via insane contracts where you're not allowed to disagree with big tech or else you get massive fines, etc. So without further ado, I loaded up 12 clips. I'm basically just going to play 40-second clips, react to them. And I want to say too that I'm obviously in media to some extent. I'm a content creator, I'm independent, and I'm also a hip hop artist. I was offered my first music contract probably when I was 20, 21 or 22 in that area. So I know about bad contracts from that angle. It sounds a lot like those are starting to get their way into news. So I'll kind of give my angle on it. And also, I wouldn't call myself an expert, but you know, as someone who never signed these garbage contracts, I think I could be fair about it instead of just being like, yeah, everything he said's right. Yeah, for sure. It's like, I don't know. Some things I like, some things I don't. I'm gonna keep it real as always. So let's watch a few clips. This is the main gist of it. Let's go.
But for the first time, I have to say that I believe many of those in charge in the right-leaning media are actually at odds with what's best for you, the viewer, the customer, and more importantly, the country. We here at Mug Club, we thought that we were all in this together, that we were fighting the media, entertainment, industrial complex. We thought that we were all genuinely taking it to big tech. But too many of those in charge of the big conservative platforms are verifiably in bed with them.
It's a big claim. He's saying a lot of right-wing media things claiming to fight big tech are actually in bed with them. And he started that. I only picked certain clips. I didn't want to, I'm not going to say bore you because it wasn't boring, but you know, certain clips, not the whole thing. He was explaining how he never tried to go after right-wingers or conservatives because we're all on the same team. And although we may agree to disagree on certain things, it doesn't make sense to, you know, attack your own. And he recently had an epiphany where he realized how bad it's gotten. And this is the balance that everybody has. Not everyone's going to agree with you on foreign policy, domestic policy. That's okay. But that fine balance of when does it become controlled opposition or when do these media companies become as bad as the left-wing media companies? You know, that balance has been kind of out of whack for a while. And it's interesting to see Steven kind of break out and say, you know what, I'm going to do something about it. So let's keep watching.
Big tech is in bed with big con. The people you thought, the people I thought were fighting for you, a lot of it has been a big con. Now, I'm specifically avoiding naming names or going after individuals in this video because I genuinely hope that those I'm addressing, and you know who you are, have a change of heart. It's never too late to do the right thing. Guys, this is a genuine plea. We can all do better. We can all do better. It doesn't have to be this way. And please, don't make me have to provide receipts.
Oh, he's threatening with the receipts. He's like, you know who you are. Me? What did I do, Steven? I'm sorry. I tried to show up at 4 o'clock. I'm sorry I was late. No, I'm just kidding. But, you know, who is he talking about? It's really hard to be clear because he doesn't say, but he's like, you know who you are. But the audience, of course, really doesn't know who he's talking about. And I have a lot more clips, but we're going to start to look at the contracts now, because basically what his big beef seems to be is that there's certain conservative media networks that are getting people into contracts with crazy clauses. And I'm going to play the clip, but I turned down almost every contract I've ever been offered. I would say pretty much everything, maybe like when I was younger, like a management deal for a year with someone that didn't work out. But for the most part, I see the clauses. And when you ask questions a lot of time, they don't like it. They want to find somebody stupid in the music industry that'll sign the clause. And I'm sure that's true at a lot of conservative networks as well, because they want to own more of your stuff. Like they want the money, not you. I get it. That's business. Let's watch.
And I saw the clause come out. And I don't just mean unreasonable demands for control, but what I would argue are immoral terms that actually punish conservative content creators on behalf of big tech. And that's something that I just couldn't unsee. And I want to let you know, it's not the exception. It's the rule. Kids out there coming up. We need to build a bench here in this movement. It's almost impossible. Don't sign these contracts.
So the thing that's interesting, and you're going to see as I play it, he has what seems to be like a copy of a contract he was offered. And to Steven, I know that there's other people being offered bad contracts. I know that there's probably some young kids that are being like lured into something, no doubt. But I'm not sure if he understands, or maybe he knows more than me. It's hard to be clear because he doesn't explain who he's talking about and how much he knows. But he shows his contract, and some of the penalties seem insane. It's like $1 million penalty, $250,000 penalty. It's insane, but my question is, how much are you making? If they could penalize you $1 million out of your salary, what was your contract? And is he assuming that every kid coming up on social media is getting the same contract? Like he says later in the show, he's one of the biggest, if not the biggest conservative commentator as far as numbers. Like he's up there, whether you like him or not. Not everybody's being offered that sort of contract. So, you know, that might be worse for some people, might be better. But in business, it's all about leverage. How much leverage do you have? When you have leverage, you don't have to sign. When you don't have leverage, you know, you get worse deals. And if you're big or small, you don't have to sign the deal. You're free to walk away always. Just don't sign it. So let's keep watching.
I now know what you are signing out there. I have the luxury of not having to. I don't have to be here. I don't have to say this. Please, don't sign this. Certainly not without professional legal counsel representation. Do not sign something that includes, let me go through this. Effectively, full ownership of all your social media platforms, channels, in perpetuity, the rights to your content, name, image, likeness, even the ones that you've built.
See, so whoever he signed with wanted to own part of what he did, which is a deal he wasn't interested in. He wanted to own his own stuff. I mean, this might be uncommon in social media and news. This is very common in the music industry. They basically say, hey, we're going to give you this amount of money, which is always a loan. When you get money from the industry, say $1 million, you'll get a signing. It's a loan. You got to pay that back. Sometimes they own your stuff and they offer you stuff. So I'm not saying that's a good deal. I would never sign it, and Crowder never signed it. But I guess maybe to somebody that's not as big as Crowder, that wants the glam and the glitz and the glory, is willing to give up a percentage of their stuff. I don't think it's a good idea. I'm 100% self-owned and independent, but some people do go that route. They get famous, they make a lot of money, and someone else makes even more money off them. You always have the freedom to not sign. Don't sign contracts out there that include multi-million-dollar penalties for different. Let me read you an example of what I mean. And this would be if it was me. If Crowder fails to deliver a monthly content in any month or any of the quarterly content in the corner, including any and all ad reads, and by the way, all these contracts came with 3, 4, 5 ad reads per show, which would fundamentally change what this show is. Got to get those dollar bills. If I failed to do that, it would be a $250,000 reduction in fee per quarter. So the fee is really what Crowder's being paid. So they're basically saying, to some extent, if you don't deliver, and this is, that's a crazy sort of deal, I'll explain, but in these sort of contracts, it's basically like both sides are trying to protect themselves. If you're Crowder, you want the money and you want to do as little as possible and keep as much control as possible. If you're the business, you want Crowder to do everything he says he's going to do, because if Crowder decides to take 3 months off and you lose $1 million, you don't want that. So basically to agree with Crowder, I don't sign deals like that. I make sure it's structured properly. I don't sign any deals, but anytime I push back, people disappear because they don't want to do it. But, if he's getting $1 million or $250,000 off of how much he's making, how much is he making? Like, is he making Joe Rogan type money where he's making 100 million plus? Is he making 10 million, 20? Like, everybody's not getting this contract. So I'm not trying to brag, but I'm probably one of the only people that's not going to just sit here and be like, oh my God, Crowder's right about everything. I like him. He's nice. I like that he's doing this. I agree with a lot of what he's saying. And I'm not doing this to just like be edgy or disagree. I'm just being honest, where it's like, I'm not saying that was a good deal. If I looked at that contract and I was Crowder, I'd throw it in the trash and I'd be like, you got to be kidding me. You got to change all this stuff. But that's called business negotiation. So Crowder, you negotiate and say, I'm not doing this is all wrong. Take all that out. And if they don't take it out of the contract, you walk away. There's nothing wrong with that. So it's like he's assuming that everybody gets this massive contract that he's getting that has these $250,000 penalties and how much they're going to pay him. Most people would not even make $250,000 or $1 million from a company in order for them to take it away. So I'm just being honest. I'm not mad that he's doing this. I'm glad, but it's like he's acting like everybody's getting a Louder with Crowder contract where you're making God knows how much money and they could, take away money if you're not fulfilling the goals that they need you to fill. I'm not saying the business is right. I'd never sign it. That's just the truth of what it seems like. I mean, I'm not getting a multi-million-dollar contract from these people, in my opinion. So they would never even have the option to take that much, and they wouldn't write it in. Like, he's like, oh, every kid, every conservative kid coming up are getting these contracts. Dude, you're one of the biggest influencers. I don't think like kids coming up with no following are getting the same contracts. That's just real.
If, let's say, we did do everything per quarter, but annually maybe miss something. Like, let's say we went and did a Change My Mind instead of a daily show, which of course requires a lot more work. There'd be a separate $1 million penalty for that if you miss a single piece of content. And the amount of content required is not in line with, frankly, it's worse than Disney. It's worse than ABC. It's worse than NBC. It's worse than CBS. This is ownership of you and everything that you do. But here's, just to drive it home, don't sign something that has another $100,000 daily penalty if it's not signed off on beforehand. You get hit by a car, you have a sick day, you could lose $100,000 a day.
I mean, I agree with them. Don't sign something like that. It's a bad deal. Basically, the business person, I have never had that much money offered to me, so I can't relate to that. But as far as like deals, sometimes people say you have to do 5 content pieces a week, right? And if you miss a certain piece of content, technically, according to the contract, they can stop paying you. In this case, what he's not explaining, and I'm just curious, I'm not mad at him. I'm glad he's doing this. I'm glad he's showing people what contracts look like in the music industry, in the entertainment industry, in the news industry. But the real question is, how much are you making? Because say if you're making like $150 million and they say, if you don't fulfill your goals, we're going to fine you $250,000 or $1 million. Yeah, that sucks. I wouldn't do it. But if they're going to spend that much money on Steven Crowder and spend 10 million, I don't know what they spent, 5 million, 3 million. The reason they're putting that in there is so they can protect themselves. Because say Crowder has like a mental breakdown and says like, oh, I don't want to make content for 3 months, but they just offered you a $7 million deal and now they got to pay out a deal and you're not even making the content. That's why they put those clauses in there. I don't agree with them. I don't sign them. I always negotiate them. I always act like Crowder and say, well, what if I went on a cruise? What if I was sick? You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want to sign this contract that says I have to do all this stuff, not because I don't want to do it, but there needs to be some sort of flexibility. So that's for Steven to negotiate. And I'm not saying it's a good contract. It looked garbage, but what he's not saying, which would provide a lot of context, is one, who it was, and also how much were you making? Because I've had smaller deals for a subscription thing that fell through because I started reading and it said, well, if you don't do this, 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 and this, then we could take away your money. but I wasn't making in that realm of what he was making, so they would never take away that much. He's acting as if they're gonna fine everybody millions of dollars, which is totally probably not true. And I'm not siding with the business. I'm just giving fair context that I guarantee you no one else is going to say this stuff because no one else is either familiar with contracts or everybody just kind of, derides whoever just to say, oh, yeah. It's like, yeah, Conservative Inc. is corrupt. The media is corrupt. A lot of right-wing institutions are either controlled opposition or just like businessmen. I agree with Crowder. It's a bad contract, but let's be honest. How much were you making, Steven? I might interview him next week. I reached out to his media team and they said, hey, Anomaly, I'm a fan. So that seems like a good sign. And, I'll have a great conversation with Steven about this, but this is just my reaction to these videos. Just being honest, just being fair. I'm glad Steven's doing it to kind of be transparent, but that's my honest opinion so far.
Hey, anyone wonder why there's burnout in this? Anyone wonder why you have kids come up and they leave and never to come back? You think if you had that kind of a penalty, you think if someone said, hey, we're going to penalize you $10,000 every day you miss coming into work, you think you'd be stressed? This is worse than the left frames their contracts. Again, of course I didn't sign any of these things. But I now know what other kids are signing out there.
Once again, I mean, no kid's going to sign. That's like Joe Rogan basically coming back with a Spotify contract and being like, can you believe that they'll penalize me $1 million if I don't actually do my job? It's like, well, how much are you making in the Spotify contract, Joe Rogan? He's making hundreds of millions of dollars allegedly. So that's like Joe Rogan picking up his Spotify contract. But can you believe what they're giving the kids? Dude, they're not giving the kids that same contract. I'm sure they're giving the kids garbage contracts. And if you have a social media following built like Crowder and myself, you have more leverage. So for example, I make my own money. I sell my own hats. I have my own email list. Like I'm going to show Crowder's pushing in this thing too, which is smart because that's power and influence and a way to collect people away from social media for yourself. But in general, it's like, I have leverage. I don't have to do anything. I don't have to listen to anybody. I don't have to sign any deal. And Crowder has even more leverage than I do. So it's like he doesn't have to do anything for the kid coming up, for the musician coming up, for the actor coming up who has no big gigs or has no big social media following. Those are the ones more likely to sign bad contracts, usually because they don't know that much. And I agree with him trying to warn him. I can't help but laugh at it. Him being like, everyone must be getting this contract. He's like, no, but a lot of people are getting bad contracts, and yes, they don't read through them, and yes, they should. And yes, if you don't know how to read contracts, you should look to legal help to get it. But I just have a hard time believing that they're giving everyone these contracts. On that note, I have received whack contracts from conservative companies, and I said, hey, I don't agree with this. Let me just give you a quick example. I'm not going to say who, but a subscription service said, Anomaly, we want to take you off Patreon, put you on ours. So they gave me a contract, and in the contract it said, technically we can change the terms of service at any time. Okay. Technically, if you don't follow the terms of service of our website, then we can terminate our contract and we don't have to pay you. Okay, so I called the people and I said, hey, I read those two things. Basically what that means, I don't know if you meant to do it, but what that means is if you change the terms of condition tomorrow and I violate the term that didn't even exist yesterday, you could take all my money away. So I told him, no matter how much I like you, I'm never going to sign this. And I did all this without a lawyer. I said, I'm never going to sign this contract because you can change the terms and then make the new terms illegal for me and take all my money. Of course, I'm not getting Crowder money, so they're not penalizing me $250,000, $1 million, but they would have penalized me thousands upon tens of thousands of dollars potentially for a couple months. So for his deal, it is important for the context of like how big was the deal? If they penalized you that much, was it like half your deal? Like if he only got a $2 million deal, that's a crazy amount. If he got a $10 million deal, it's still pretty crazy. If he got $100 million, it's not that crazy. And also, like, depending how much it is, if they're going to give you $50 million, $10 million, $5 million, $7 million, that's a lot of money to pay somebody. So if they're going to, I don't like the businessman usually, I'm the independent creator, but I understand, say I create a business, I have $100 million, I spend $10 million on Crowder, I'm just using numbers. I want to make sure he makes it back. I can't have him having like a mental breakdown. Of course, if he gets in a car accident, like, that's terrible and you shouldn't take away his money, but that's why you negotiate as the creator, you negotiate for yourself and you say, hey, this contract doesn't make sense because if I take a break or I get in an accident or something happens where I can't work, you're going to take a lot of my money. And that's when the businessman says, I understand that. And I don't want that to happen. However, I can't have you taking a break for 3 months because then I'm going to lose millions of dollars. And that's where the negotiation comes in. And if either side's too stubborn, the deal doesn't happen. I've pretty much never done a deal because, usually I state my case, they say no, and I say no, so that's what seems like Crowder's doing here, which is fine. And he's smart to do that. But a little context, I think, would help a lot. Let's watch more.
Think about this for a second. Those in charge, the big conservative, the big con, and it really is the biggest con going right now. They're making it known in their contracts that they will enforce the guidelines of big tech and punish conservatives on their behalf. Don't worry, Wojcicki. Trust me, these conservatives will stay in line. If they get demonetized, we take away 25% of their operating budget. Take another 20% away if they get a hard strike. Hey, don't worry, Zuckerberg. We've got your back. Hope to see you at the UFC Apex.
So whoever offered Crowder that deal, I have no idea who it was because he won't say. Whoever offered that deal had basically built into the contract, he explained in other videos, some sort of percentage decrease in pay or some sort of penalty if you got demonetized on social media. So to me, that is suspect. But also, I'm just going to be honest, I understand where they're coming from because if you sign Crowder for this money and you're taking a percentage of his like YouTube channel and his YouTube channel gets deleted, now that's millions of dollars you're losing. So that's their way of trying to protect themselves. I agree with Crowder. I would never sign that deal. I would never give away even like 1% of my stuff. I wouldn't give up rights to my social media. I wouldn't give anybody a percentage of my YouTube channel. I personally wouldn't do any of that. It's pretty much non-negotiable. I wouldn't do it. I agree with them. But I see where they're I don't know who would sign that deal. Maybe somebody like desperate for more fame and power. But it's definitely not good that they're doing that, but I'm just giving like the alternate perspective of why they might do that. But yeah, I think a lot of conservative businesses are all about the dollar, all about the donor, all about, basically just doing just enough to make money, but not enough to actually make an impact in politics. And, I'm glad Crowder's kind of speaking out against it. I'm just trying to give you like both sides of the story and be as fair as I can because I do know quite a bit about contracts and how they work. So let's keep watching.
You'd like to have some brothers, sisters, Z's and arms, some security without losing your shirt? Send your email to creators@louderwithcrowder.com and we'll talk. You want a partnership? Great. Can probably work something out. You want the security of being an employee? Could probably make that work too. There are many ways to skin this cat. And you know what? If Mug Club or whatever network it becomes isn't for you, if this isn't the right home for you, we have lawyers and representation who will negotiate your contract for you with anyone else out there at half the market rate.
I mean, I'd be lying if that didn't sound like a MyPillow sales pitch or something. He's like, if anybody gives you trouble, we'll negotiate your lawyer thing for half the rate. Like, that was very salesman-y. Like, he's now going from that to providing legal help for half the rate, which is still going to cost something. Well, if say the rate's $4,000, he's going to charge $2,000. So he's made a business off of basically providing lawyers to conservatives who need it. Listen, I'm not knocking the hustle. Everybody's got to make their money, but I think it's genius of Crowder, and I'm not mad at it. I don't care. It's genius of him to basically parlay this. I got a really bad contract and, big cons up to something, but now I'll start recruiting talent. I'll be providing you lawyer services. As you'll see, he's pushing, give me your email, which he's probably got enough emails in the next 24 hours to make six figures off of. Everybody knows email lists are huge cash cow. I'm not knocking it. It's great to collect an email list. If you have a business or you're a creator, collect emails. It's smart. I'm not knocking it. I'm just observing. I'm like, wow, that's pretty good. Like, I'm mad. Work for me. I'm mad. Half the price. I'm like, this guy's good. And I don't know if he meant to do that or not. That's just how I feel. Let me know what you think.
If you feel in your gut that a lot of conservative content out there feels homogenous, feels sanitized, feels like they're missing some key points. There's a reason for that. There's a reason that you often find yourself asking, hey, I wonder why X won't talk about Y. And I now know any contract that I would have signed would have turned this into yet another softer radio show on video, littered with live reads for every sponsor that could be crammed into every single episode possible.
I agree with them there. That's definitely happening in conservative media. They're controlling people by their contracts. Also just by the influence. Like, for example, when this was before the Alex Jones Kanye or Ye interview, but even before that, when Ye was just talking about Zionism and, like Jewish connections that people didn't want to hear, Ben Shapiro basically came out and said, it's Der Stürmer, it's bad, everybody, so basically if you work at Daily Wire, do you think it's a good idea to interview Kanye West or, Ye, the artist formerly known Kanye West? Not really, so there is kind of pressure too. Like, you definitely don't talk about the Israeli speech laws that Trump, DeSantis, and the Republican Party's passing. Why? Because Jewish donors pay a lot of money to these people. You're not supposed to say it. I guess we'll just say individual donors, random people with absolutely no agenda, even though they absolutely do have an agenda, and that's why the speech laws are being passed. But whatever, there's things that I've never really heard Crowder talk about. I think he knows, even though he's not getting paid to not talk about it. It's like something that you just don't bring up. Like if you say Ilhan Omar sucks, yeah. The left wing is censoring speech, yeah. Trump and DeSantis and the GOP are also censoring speech and passing speech. So it's that'll affect your career. So I'm not just blaming him, but it's there's definitely contracts holding people in place, I think, but a lot of it is social and political, basically gatekeeping, where you can't get to this space. We'll never have you speak at these events. We'll try to basically blacklist your character and make sure none of the kids know who you are because you talk about certain things that go against our donors. And I would say, just like Crowder saying the contracts are a huge deal, which they are, and money's a huge deal that controls people, which it is, I would say donor influence and just that sort of sphere is massive in the right-wing atmosphere, where basically, everybody has, everybody has to play stupid to get to a certain part. Like if you want to fly to Mar-a-Lago and hang out with Donald Trump all the time, you have to act like he's not lying about the vaccine and saying it saved 100 million lives and he's the father of the vaccine. Like you pretty much just have to lie and be like, oh, it's only Fauci that does that. It's like, yeah, but if you came out and did that, do you think you're going to get invited to dinners? So I think there's money, contracts that's keeping people in place. But a lot of it is basically this unwritten rule that there's certain places you just don't go if you want to hang out with the big boys. And I hope Crowder continues on this path, and I hope he has good intentions because, I think that he does some good comedy and has a massive, massive influence. So, I'm rooting for him. Hopefully I could talk to him if I didn't blow it with this video today. But let's watch 2 more clips and then we'll see what you're saying.
Those pulling the strings in Big Con are bothered precisely by the fact that you do. They don't want a group of rebellious rabble-rousers who want to learn, fight like hell, and laugh together. You're of no value if you can't all be kept in line to some degree. I don't mean some master plan to eliminate you. Just subdue you a little bit. Just soften your edges a little bit. Just play ball a little more so we can keep our content all monetized and keep having cocktails with those in charge of big tech.
I mean, I agree. I think that that's happening at big tech. I think that's happening with the donors. I think that's happening with the lobbyists. I think that's happening in a lot of ways. I'm going to do a video tomorrow, so not to dunk on Trump again, but he just announced that he's doing a new rally, right? New rally with Lindsey Graham. Nobody likes Lindsey Graham. Trump calls him a rhino. All of the biggest Trump supporters call him a rhino. We all know Lindsey Graham is a uniparty warmongering snake. Yet Donald Trump is still doing rallies with him. Why? I don't know. Is it money, influence? Like, what does Lindsey Graham have that Donald Trump needs? Donald Trump doesn't need Lindsey Graham, or does he? On the surface, no, he doesn't. Trump's so popular. Nobody likes Lindsey Graham. But Lindsey Graham keeps getting reelected. But Lindsey Graham's in with the uniparty war. So it's like there is something going on in the not just the Democratic side, not just the rhinos, but it's like even the rhino fighters are rhinos, in my opinion, because it's like, everybody seems to be controlled by something, almost like there's like a way to be an edgy Republican, but like don't actually say anything of value. Just so there's a lot of people in the comments, I'm sure, that love Steven Crowder and watch him all the time. In fact, I know that that's true. There's a lot of people that are like, nah, I don't know. But that's my take. I'm gonna play the last thing, and then I'm gonna read some of your comments. I haven't been able to see them because I've been playing the videos. Let's watch one more clip.
I just ask that you join me in letting them know that there are far more of us, far more of you than of them. Demand change, demand better, be a signatory. That's what this is. It's not just entering in your email. It's letting these people know at Big Con that you want something different, that you require better. Because you know what? I am going to march into these people's offices, these nameless, faceless people's offices, with your declaration and the number of you who exist. Those in Big Con are personally going to know just how many of you are equally pissed.
So I have to say it's a double genius move by Crowder with the email thing. So if you watch his full video, it's basically like, they're scamming us with contracts. They're controlling a lot of your favorite influencers. And the way to fight back is to go to this website and sign up your email. Why is that a genius move, folks? For two reasons. One, it's true. Now Crowder has a list of people he could show to Big Con and say, oh, look, how many people like me, like they don't already know. Why is that really a genius move? Tell me in the comments. I'll explain. I probably already did earlier. He's collecting emails. Emails are the gold mine of marketing. I have an email list. I'm not ashamed of it. It's smart. I'm not sorry for it. Why would I be? It is true that it gives you power over big tech and big media. Like if you have an email list of a couple 100,000 people or 1 million people or 2 million people, you can make a lot of money. You don't need to sign with Daily Wire or Blaze. That's where I'm at right now. I mean, I don't make as much as Crowder, but I'm chilling. I'll cry for money when I need help. I'm good. You can't bribe me. You can't bribe me even if I'm broke. That's how strong my soul is. But I got my own stuff. I built enough of my own stuff to be okay. I could go further, but I should have done better. But, it could always be better, always be worse. But Crowder, you got to understand, with all the emails he's about to get, I'm guessing he's so popular, he'll get hundreds of thousands, if not millions of new emails. Guys, if you have an email list of 1 million people, you can make $1 million. So just with that video alone, he's going to get as many emails as he's probably gotten in a minute. And he's going to be able to make a fortune off those emails. So I'm not saying it's wrong. It is the best way to get people's address away from other people, and have it for yourself to use, like it's not like you're dependent on Facebook, or email lists are a big freedom but to act like, oh, I'm this saint, I'm going to set you free and provide you a lawyer at half price. I'm going to set you free and collect your emails. Like, yeah, okay. And I'm not mad at it. Get your emails, get your lawyers. I agree with a lot of what he says, but I do have to say, and I hope I get the interview. So in that email, he said, hey, if you want to, I never do interviews. And in that video, he said, I never do interviews, but I'm going to start doing interviews to talk about this. Email me at whatever the email was. So I emailed them. I get a bing like 5 minutes later, and whoever runs his email service, whoever is managing him, hey, Anomaly, I'm a big fan. Like, I'll try to set something up with Crowder. So hopefully Crowder likes me. He probably hates me, but if he doesn't hate me, I'll be interviewing him next week because whoever works for him is a fan of mine. So I'll ask him these questions. Like, this is important context. Although I agree with him, yes, that was a scammy contract. Yes, Conservative Inc. is scamming. Yes, there's a lot of control. Yes, there's a lot of phonies. Yes, there's a lot of money and influence. Yes, there's a lot of people in suits that don't care about your values. They just want your money. Agree. With that being said, when he's talking about these $1 million fines, how much money are you making? Let's put it in layman's terms, okay? If you're making $100,000 a year and you miss work for 3 weeks and you don't have sick days, what happens? You got to pay for that money or work it off. Like that's what normal people have to do all the time. That's what I mean. I'm hanging out with my brother and he's got to like he doesn't have sick days. You know what I'm saying? It's like, oh, I got to pay this back if I don't. That's what people do when they work. Like you got to pay back your sick days or you got to only use enough. So when you're an influencer, like no one else is getting fined $1 million. You know, it's like how I'm just asking how much was the contract? Was it $1 million, 10 million, 100 million? This makes a huge difference. And just like normal people have only a certain amount of days to leave, same with wealthy people who sign contracts. They don't want to just give you ultimate freedom to take 3 months off. They want to know that you're going to make the content for what they're paying you for. I'm sure Joe Rogan has some sort of contract too. He can't just take 3 years off or, take off 2 months. Like they're paying the guy $100 million. Like you gotta, and here's the thing. I agree with Crowder. I don't like to do that. Right now, everybody says Anomaly. When is your show? I don't know. Maybe I probably should schedule my show. It would probably be smarter. I'd probably get more views. But if you want to know, I enjoy my freedom. I make shows whenever I want. I could do 2 a days, 1 a days, 3 a days, none a days. I could take 2 weeks off. I could take 2 months off. But if I take 2 weeks off and 2 months off, I'm going to lose money. So here's the thing. This is what Crowder, and I'm not saying that deal was good. It looked garbage. But if I take 2 months off, I'm going to lose lots of money. That's just how my job works. If I sign a deal with a company where I'm going to make content for them now, and I take off 2 months, now instead of me losing me money, I'm going to be losing them money because they just signed me to a contract and a deal. So that's why they're doing that. I'm not saying it's a good deal. I wouldn't sign it. I'd negotiate it. I'd want all the freedom. But that's just how the world works. If you want to work by yourself, you get to take your own risks, spend your own money, take your time, go away for a year. But if Crowder goes away for a year, he loses a lot of money. If I go away for a year, I lose a lot of money. So why would it be different when you sign a contract? Like they're just going to let you do whatever you want and there's not going to be a contract? No, it's like everybody else. Monday through Friday, come to work. You have this many sick days, and if you miss them, you're gonna owe us money or have to work those days back. That's like he's acting like he's this huge victim in the situation. I'm like, I agree with him, but it's like, dude, no one else is getting that contract. So we need a little bit of context. Hopefully I can interview him and just ask him, like, who is it? Maybe he doesn't want to say. That's fine. How much was your deal? This is very important, is it not? How much was your deal? Was it like those numbers looked crazy? $250,000 if you do this. We take 20. I would never sign it. Don't give away your stuff. I agree. I own all my stuff. But some people sell their stuff. Like Taylor Swift says, "Where's my masters? How come I think she was like saying George Soros's son or like I can't remember. Like I believe she literally mentioned Soros. I was like, whoa. But whoever she sold her masters, which is like how you make your royalties and owning your music, she sold it. And then she made hundreds of millions of dollars by selling pieces of her music. Maybe the record industry owned it. She signed a deal that gave her a lot of money. She gave away this percent. Soros or someone bought, some management firm bought that percent. And now she's crying about it. Here's the trade-off. I'm just going to be honest. Why am I not Taylor Swift? For many reasons. I'm not a woman. I'm not that hot. I don't make country music, but I didn't sign a deal like that. So it's like you sign the deal, you make hundreds of millions of dollars, you're massively famous, and now you go crying about the contract. Like you didn't have to sign it. You didn't have to be famous. You wanted the money. I had a deal. I'm just going to give you a music deal real quick. I had when I was 21, 22. I had the head of some record label, and he knew a guy who owned a distribution network, some pretty big guys. They brought me to New York City when I was like 21 years old, and they gave me a contract. And in the contract, it said between management, they wanted to manage me, they wanted to be my record label. It said they were going to own 80% of my music, 85%. I was only going to own 15%. Guess what I did? I said no. I said, that's crazy. How would I only own 15% of my music? But you got to understand that's what some artists do. They want the fame, they want the record label, they want the deal, so they sign it. And here's another thing that is just interesting to know. There's something in music called a record advance. It's an advance. We're going to sign you for $1 million and we take 50% and you get 50%. Let's just do the math, okay? So I get $1 million, I signed to Def Jam, I get 50%, they get 50%. That's a standard deal, like half and half. Okay, so when $1 million comes in, I don't get any money because I owe them the $1 million. So the first $1 million that comes in, let's do the math. 50% is their money anyway. So 500,000 goes to them. 500,000 is mine, but I owe them $1 million because a record advance is not a money they're giving you. It's a loan. It's always a loan. So the first million, they get 500,000, they get my 500,000. I'm still $500,000 in debt to them, and I made $1 million. Then you make $2 million. They take their cut. I take my cut. They take my cut. So it would take $2 million on a 50-50 deal. If you took $1 million advance, it would take $2 million just to break even. But I don't think they could just like come take your money or anything, but that's just how certain deals work. I'm not saying it's fair, but if you want to sign to certain things, you say, hey, we'll take this, we'll own 50% of your merch, you own all your touring, we own 75% of your royalties, and we could sell it to whoever we want. I don't sign those deals. I own everything. In fact, I would say I'm doing better than a lot of signed artists because a lot of signed artists, they want that quick deal. I worked for 10 years. I was broke. I'm not going to say I starved because I obviously didn't starve, but you get what I'm saying. Now I'm here. Now I own everything. Now I have leverage. Now they could kiss my ass. Crowder, I don't know what deals he's ever signed. I don't know, did Crowder make it from the ground up? It seems like it. I don't know if it's true, but if he made it from the ground up and he owns his own thing, he doesn't owe anybody anything. He can absolutely take that contract, rip it up. But I'm just telling him that's not a contract they're giving to everybody because not everybody has your influence. So like, how much were you making to get fined that much? That's my question. Still seems like a terrible deal. Someone like Crowder should never give up, I don't think, a percentage of his stuff. But here's the other flip side of the coin. How big do you want to be? How rich do you want to be? Some people have $5 million and they're happy, but they want $500 million or $5 billion. So that's where you get tied up in those sort of deals. Post Malone, if you guys know Post Malone, he's a famous R&B singer. He made a song called White Iverson and it blew up. It got millions of streams, tens of millions of streams, hundreds of millions of streams. Kylie Jenner was playing it. Like, he was probably a millionaire off of the song White Iverson before any of his other hits came out, and he still signed a deal with a major label. Why would an artist that has everything he needs, and why would he sign the deal? Because he wants to be even more famous. And now Post Malone's a household name. He's made tens or hundreds of millions of dollars. He's way richer than he'd ever be. He's way more famous than he'd ever be. So that's kind of the trade-off of, like, when you get to a certain level, you get approached by people and they say, well, how big do you want to be? Do you want to be this big? So I don't know who the Crowder, all I'm saying is Crowder needs to, like, in my view, just so I know what's going on, he doesn't know anybody anything, but to really dissect how bad that deal truly was, if it was like a bad deal, super bad deal, really bad deal, he's got to tell us how much he was getting offered. Because was this the Joe Rogan style deal where some major network came in and tried to give him some crazy massive deal and then, had some crazy clauses in there? Was this just a normal deal that someone just gave a crappy deal that's like laughable that he just threw away? Context really, really matters here, because maybe even though Crowder's very famous and wealthy, there's always another level. You know what I'm saying? If you have 10 million, you could be 100 billion. You have 100 million, you could have $1 billion. Oh, you could have $1 billion, you could have 100 billion. There's always someone that's going to come in, try to take a percentage of what you have and turn it into something bigger, or, drain your money. But I 100% agree with Crowder that it's never really a good deal to give away like your YouTube channel. It's never really a good deal to give away anything that you've already built, especially at Crowder's level. It just wouldn't really make sense. I will say this though, I did start a clips channel with a friend. It fell through, but while he was helping, I believe I offered him 25% of the clips channel to post a bunch of my clips. I'm too busy, and my personal philosophy in business is 100% of zero is zero. So it's like you can hold on to nothing forever, but it's nothing. So if I have no clips channel, I'll give a percentage of that to somebody who will manage it and post it. Not because, and that was a good friend of mine. So it's like I gave him a good deal because I like him as a person. It's not a business person, someone I know since 5th grade. So it's like, here, if you take this seriously, now you have incentive to really push this, because I'll give you a percentage of this entire YouTube channel. Not to a corporation. I'm not selling my soul. It's just like, work for it, you own it. I think that that's a fair deal for a friend of, like, go crush it then, because if I just sit on this for 5 years, there is no clips channel, and 100% of zero is zero. So someone said zero. I'm not sure I can agree with those terms. No, the point that I'm making is, if like there's certain people that gatekeep nothing forever. It's like their business isn't anywhere. It's not making money. They're not, but they're like gatekeep. It's like, it's good sometimes to partner if you have nothing. I'm not saying if you're Crowder, if you have nothing or you're starting on something new. I started USA Products Only with a few friends. I wasn't fighting over percentages because it's zero right now. It's negative. It's in the negative. I'm not making money off it, but it's a good cause. But in general, I'm not going to scrap like 100% of zero is zero. That the point that I'm making is if that website never goes anywhere, it doesn't matter how much percentage you own of it because it's not going anywhere. In my opinion, with things like that, it's a good idea to give people percentages that can make it into something because then you'll all have something. But this is just my personal take. You don't have to agree. That's my analysis of it. Steven Crowder, seemingly like he was going to drop some massive bombshell, ended up being a really, really bad contract that he was offered that we're not even sure how bad it is because he didn't explain how much he was even making in it. He then suggested that like any kid was going to get that same contract or something. And maybe he has proof that he didn't show that that company is offering it to a lot of kids with less than him. Without more context, it's really going to be hard to tell. And I would say for sure, if you're out there and you do social media or news or comedy like Steven Crowder, the best thing you could do is obviously not sign a garbage deal like that, but make leverage. Like the way you make leverage is to build your own audience. And this is something I'm going to leave on this note. When I was younger, my biggest mistake, I made a lot of mistakes, but in my music career, when I was just doing content and music, my biggest mistake was always thinking I needed somebody else. I thought I needed a record label. I thought I needed a video person. Because I didn't, it's stressful to do everything. It's like, I need someone to help me. My whole life changed when I realized I don't need anyone to help me. Now I'm a workaholic. I do my own production. I have my own microphone. I do all my own video editing. I do everything myself, not because I want to, not because I'm not a team player. It's just how bad do you want it? If people aren't going to come help you, you realize in your 20s, nobody really cares about you. Like they don't care if I make it or not. So I had to teach myself all that stuff in order to succeed. Because if I'm not going to do it, unfortunately, it's not going to get done. And now I've built so much leverage. Maybe one day I could get somebody to do my production, but in the meantime, I'm not slowing down. So that's the one thing I learned through my 20s is just like Crowder said, read your contracts, never sign a contract without reading it. Anything that seems funny in your contract, like Crowder pointed out, tell that to somebody and tell that to the person that they're trying to get you to sign and see what their reaction is. If their reaction is, oh, okay, we'll try to work with that. Sometimes they try to bully you. They try to be like, oh, well, you're not serious about this or, oh, and that's not a good sign. So always read your contract. I would say if you can read, yes, it's great to get a lawyer, but it's pretty self-explanatory for the most part. Like I've never used, unfortunately, I wish I had the money too, but when I was younger, I don't want to pay for a lawyer. I could read the contract. If it says this, it means this, right? Like if it's a 10-page contract, oh, it does mean that. You don't have to sign a 30-page contract. It's like an omnibus bill. It absolutely is that. And it could be shorter and to the point. But the reason they don't make them short and to the point is because they don't want them to be short and to the point. Anything it says, that's what it means. I mean, contracts are simpler than people want to say. There's a few interesting terminologies, but for the most part, don't let them trick you. If it says it, it means it. If it didn't mean it, it wouldn't say it, like in the contract. So if it seems weird, push back. If they don't like your pushback, leave. But the best way to really win is to not wait for somebody else. If you're a music artist, if you're a painter, if you're a content creator, if you're doing a podcast, the truth is nobody gives a crap about you, just like nobody gave a crap about me, and you have to give a crap about yourself. So build leverage. Crowder, I don't know how he got there, if it was with his team or with this person or that person, hard work, I'm sure. He built that leverage. Now he could say no to whatever deal he wants. I've built a certain amount of leverage. Build your own thing that no one can take away. Own your own thing. And when you build enough and own enough, you have more leverage. So you can go into any deal confident and you can always turn stuff down. So, I'm somebody that doesn't want to give my rights to somebody or percentages like that. But to each their own. Hopefully I can interview Crowder next week and get a little bit more into exactly what happened, because I think that out of every conservative influencer who's going to respond to this, I'm guessing, I don't know for sure, I'm guessing most people are just going to be like, yeah, he's 100% right. Yeah. And maybe people have more stories. Maybe there's other conservative influencers who are going to talk about their bad deals. This is all positive. This is all healthy. But I would say, yeah, I'm just wondering who it is. I'm wondering how much they offer that to, and also just any network. It is true what he said about how a lot of people just sound the same and seem the same. I'm wondering if it's contractually like that, or it's just like a NPC sort of thing. You go to the same parties, get the same donor money, hang out with the same people, say the same stuff. We've seen that here for a while. So we'll see what's going on. Let me know what you think in the comments. God bless you guys. God bless your family. God bless America. God bless the world. That's my take. I think it'll be pretty unique on this topic because, I've dealt with contracts since I was like 20 and always read them myself, never used a lawyer, and pretty much always saw through it, just like Steven did with his contract. Good call, Steven. And